Welcome back to the Progressive Pastor Podcast, where we explore the intersections of justice, faith, and church. Kyle, what's up, dude?
Top 5 fast food restaurants. Go.
Okay, well, first we have to define a fast food restaurant. Does it have to have a drive-thru?
Fast food restaurants.
Okay, what about like Chipotle? Is Chipotle a fast food restaurant?
Oh, okay. Man, listen,
This is what I'm saying. This is what I
JT,
mean.
I did my homework coming into this episode, and you immediately ruin everything.
How am I
like you
ruining? I'm
normally do.
asking a clarifying question.
Yes, it's a fast food restaurant is a fast service restaurant. They're also, surprisingly, there's a Qdoba by us that does have a drive-thru. Kind of very interesting.
I am not a Qdoba fan. I am pro Chipotle.
Oh, we're going to fight about this later.
Okay.
Anyway, top 5 fast food restaurants. Go.
Now, do I have to be currently
If you don't
eating
give me your
the-
top 5 fast food restaurants in the next 3 seconds, I'm going to lose it.
So, for those of you that don't know, I don't eat meat anymore. I haven't eaten meat in years. But back in the day, when I was slamming burgers,
Ooh.
I would
Give it to me.
I was a McDonald's boy.
Oh, okay.
I was a McDonald's. I would throw back some McDoubles like no one's business. Get your foot off of my desk.
You're fine.
So I would say McDonald's number 1.
McDonald's number 1. You're starting at number 1.
Oh, yeah, no.
Oh, I thought you were going to go bottom up.
No,
Okay.
no.
Oh.
I'm gonna go top down.
Man.
No.
Oh, wow. I was not prepared. McDonald's a solid 5.
No, not
Whew.
for me. No.
Man,
I'll
okay.
start at the top and let it trickle down, just like you said you like your economics.
That's true,
number
yeah.
2, number 2, I'm going to go Wendy's.
Solid.
Solid number 2 for me.
Solid.
And half of that is the Frosty.
Mm.
Half of it. Like, I like their burgers and stuff when I used to eat it, and, like, fries were okay, but, like...
Wendy's chicken is unmatched.
You know what? Actually, I might change it up. See, now that you put me on the spot too fast. No, I don't.
This is what it is. Welcome to the podcast.
All right, I think McDonald's has to be number 1 because it's so reliable. I loved Lion's Choice, which is like a St. Louis thing, I guess. Like it's not
Yeah.
elsewhere.
Welcome to the region.
Love Lion's Choice. Great roast beef. I dig Arby's. Arby's is okay.
Okay.
It's not as good
Yeah.
as Lion's Choice, but Arby's is all right.
For someone who doesn't eat meat anymore, very meat heavy list.
Well, I mean, what is it?
Arby's has the meats.
I'll throw, but it literally has the meats.
Yeah.
I'll throw. Controversial 5th pick.
Okay.
Controversial 5th pick.
I'm ready.
I am pro Burger King. They've got the Impossible Whopper.
Okay.
I will defend their fries all day long.
Wow.
I don't have any any problems. I don't need to.
Wow.
I don't have to justify myself to you.
No, you don't. That's correct. We are both grown men.
Yeah.
But I've never seen someone so confident in being so incorrect.
Oh, really?
What a baseless claim to say Burger King's fries.
Wow.
Oh my
I'm sorry. I'm a man of the people. You elitist
man.
snob.
We're gonna get so much hate mail. I
Wow.
can't believe it.
All right. Well, what's yours?
So I'm gonna do it bottom up,
Okay.
right? Because the suspense is no longer there.
Sorry.
Number 5, also a regional pick.
Okay.
This is my number 1 guilty pleasure of all time.
Okay.
White Castle.
Oh, that's a good pick.
White Castle makes me feel so horrible so quickly.
Yeah.
But man, does it just hit the spot every time. That spot leaves my body so fast.
It's like a toxic relationship.
It really is. Yeah, it's like your high school ex that just kind of keeps coming back. Yeah. Yeah.
Duh, that's a good pick. And
Yeah.
they do have impossible sliders.
Yeah. So
Dang it.
So White
that's
Castle
good.
number 5. Number 4, big sandwich guy.
Okay.
Pre-2023, this spot goes to Jimmy John's.
Okay.
But sitting here
They're freaky fast.
in the year of our Lord 2024,
yeah.
Jersey Mike's.
Jersey Mike's.
Jersey Mike's,
Yeah.
the variety between hot and cold, the freshly sliced meats and cheeses,
The rosemary bread.
the rosemary bread.
rosemary bread.
Friends, when I say that the rosemary bread changed my life, I can't sit here and say I'm being dramatic.
That's a big claim.
Changed my life
I like Jersey Mike's. I will say, because we've had both a lot
a lot.
over the last several months.
It's a problem.
And as somebody that doesn't eat meat,
Yeah.
I will probably always default to Jimmy John's. I do. I will say,
But you like the mushroom sub from
I do.
Jersey
That's
Mike's.
a good hot option.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, most of the time, if I want some kind of a vegetarian sandwich, I usually want it to be a cold sandwich. Typically, I will say, Jersey Mike's bread is superior.
Ooh.
Like if I could get Jimmy John's veggie number 6, no tomato, extra lettuce on
wheat.
rosemary bread.
Oh, on the
then
rosemary.
that's the crossover episode we need.
Oh man.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, okay.
That's good. Okay, so that's number 4.
So that's number 4. All right.
Number 3. That's where I'm sliding McDonald's.
Okay.
Okay, McDonald's has become my road trip meal if I need some fast food.
Yeah.
It is I am driving in between meetings and I need to go grab something real quick. It is the most portable food in the fast food region by far.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that.
By far. And also, like it just hits different, you know? Like and that's my order. 2 McDoubles,
Yeah.
a medium fry. Friends, when I talk about McDonald's Sprite and how it changes my life. Oh, McDonald's Sprite.
It physically hurts me in the best way.
Yeah.
In the best way.
Yeah, I'm a glutton for punishment when I get a McDonald's Sprite. Let me tell
That's one of the 7 deadly sins.
you. It really is.
Yeah.
I think that's what they were talking about when they wrote it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, that's one of the future episodes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's number 3.
All right.
Number 2, big sandwich guy.
Okay.
We get a lot of sandwiches. Haven't been here together.
Okay.
Firehouse Subs.
Overrated.
Firehouse Subs.
Number 2.
Firehouse Subs.
Ugh.
When the turkey bacon ranch
Get
sub
out of here.
is superior to any other fast food item.
I will take any sandwich from Jimmy John's or Jersey Mike's or Penn Station over
Penn Station? Really?
over any sub. The Penn Station
Ugh.
the Penn Station Philly cheesesteak with pizza sauce.
Oh,
Get in my belly.
I forgot about the pizza sauce.
Yeah,
That's
makes
good
it.
stuff. Yeah.
I mean, I will take any sandwich off those menus over
Yeah.
Firehouse Subs.
All right. But anyway, number 1.
All right.
This is somewhere you and I can't go together because all they sell is meat. There's nothing there worth it for you. Well, maybe.
Okay.
Cane's. And here's the thing. I thought about putting Chick-fil-A in my top 5. If you go to the Baldwin House, Chick-fil-A, I am a signature member at Chick-fil-A.
Okay.
Like it's a big deal, right? I take my Chick-fil-A points seriously.
Okay.
But if we're going to talk about chicken, I understand that Cane's chicken is not superior to Chick-fil-A chicken. It's not superior to Wendy's chicken by itself.
Okay.
But when I say I would take a bath in cane sauce, that's the winner.
I don't need the image.
You
personally.
do. Yeah, you have it though.
I do now,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Cane sauce.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a time in my college years
Yeah.
where I would walk up to a Cane's window and say, box combo, no slaw, extra toast, extra cane sauce with sweet tea, and I had my $8.76 ready to go.
Wow.
Exact change.
Okay.
It's not good. They've also ridiculously raised their prices now. But that's welcome to America in 2023.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Cane's chicken and fries, man.
Also, significantly less homophobic chicken.
It is less homophobic.
Than
I think we have to take into
Chick-fil-A.
account. We do have to take that into account.
Yes.
Man, Chick-fil-A just makes some good chicken, though.
I don't agree. To quote Pete Buttigieg, I don't really agree with Chick-fil-A's politics, but I do kind of agree with their chicken.
Yeah, their chicken has a compelling argument.
There is a compelling argument to be
Yeah.
made for Chick-fil-A's chicken. I do agree with that.
Man, and I feel like a fraud sitting here at the time of this recording as I just woofed down some Panda Express to leave it off my list.
You did.
It was hurtful.
And most of those restaurants you just listed are not far from here.
That's true. Yeah,
You could have gone to any of them.
walking distance.
Yeah. And you still chose Panda Express.
I mean, we do drive to Jimmy John's a lot.
we do, and it's less than a mile from
It's
here.
not good.
We
Yeah.
could walk there.
Yeah. Oh man.
Oh.
Anyway, so thanks for coming back to the Progressive Pastor Podcast. We kind of hinted at this in our last episode that we'll be diving a little bit more into our backstories a little bit, our call into ministry, our relationship with the church up until this point, kind of how we got here to Concord Trinity here in St. Louis. So I talked a lot just now. So JT, why don't you hit us off?
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'll let you.
You can start.
I'll let you go first.
You can do Age Before Beauty
Well,
if you want.
I think I have the beauty covered.
Are you sure?
Yeah. So take it away, Age.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So we chatted a little bit. I chatted a little bit in the last episode about where I had lived and stuff before here. I actually grew up in St. Louis, in the St. Louis area. Grew up over in St. Charles County, if you're familiar with the St. Louis area. And so just a suburb outside of St. Louis. Grew up there, and actually grew up in the Catholic Church. Very different from the Baptist background that Kyle brings to the table.
Spoiler.
You said it last episode.
I know.
You did, so it's not a spoiler because you said it.
Maybe respect the new listeners, JT.
Okay.
Be respectful.
So Kyle comes from a Baptist background. I came from a Catholic background, and have a deep love still for the Catholic Church. I've come to have disagreements with it. I've come to have theological disagreements with it, especially social disagreements with it. Its stances on particular justice issues. But if the Catholic Church were to become more progressive on women in ministry, on LGBTQ folks, I could deal with all of the theology that I disagree with, and I could go back and be happy there right now. But it's those things that, in part, kind of made me wander away and start looking at other denominations and churches. But I always felt I loved being in the church. I loved growing up in the church. I had a really good experience actually growing up in the church. And when I got to college, I actually went to college to study to be a firefighter and a paramedic, and wandered into just my gen ed religion class, world religions, and fell in love with the study of religion, fell in love with kind of the academic study of theology. And so changed my major to religion, dove into that world, and felt like that was kind of where I was going, that I was going to go do the academic thing after all. And graduated from there, went on to Princeton to do my Master of Divinity. And
Oh, you are a Theo bro, aren't you?
no, I'm not.
Ugh.
I'm not.
Theo-
We'll talk about Theo.
Theo
bros.
bros get MDivs, man.
No. What? I think a lot more than Theo bros get in. There are Theo. I did know some Theo bros.
I'm sure you
We
did,
will talk
yeah.
about them in
I
a future episode.
I can't wait.
They are the worst. Anyway,
Not great. Yeah.
not great. But I went to do my PhD. Wanted to do that, just stay in the academy, do that thing. But after a while, I was talking to there was a professor up there that I went to Princeton to work with because I'd been so moved by his work and influenced by his work. And I was talking to him one day, like in my first year when I was a first-year student, and he listened very, very patiently and very kindly. And he was like, it's great that you're interested in this stuff, and it's great that you're interested in academic theology, but if you can do anything else, you probably should. And that really crushed me. I didn't, because I went there to work with this guy, and he's telling me not to go down this path. And he quickly followed it up with, it's not because you're not smart, or it's not because we don't think you can do it, but, the job market's really bad for PhDs right now, and you've already got a kid and all this stuff. And it made a lot of sense, but it really crushed me. And he convinced me to stay. He convinced me to stay the path. And the following year, we have to do a field education experience, 2 of them, while we were there, and I got placed in this church. And I didn't really have any interest in doing parish ministry work, but I had to get these credits, and I thought I can work on my preaching and all this stuff. And 6 months into being there at that church, I realized, it's not really writing the great theology book that interests me. It's taking that cool work and making it applicable to the people in the pews on a Sunday morning and how that can influence the way we do ministry. And so I really it was a very natural feeling of letting go of kind of the dream of the academic stuff that I thought I was going to do and turning toward parish ministry. And so, I continued down that road. The program I was in was a Methodist program for the field education stuff. And I fit in okay. I mean, the Methodist Church is a wide tent. It's got people all over the spectrum, and there's a pocket and kind of the left fringe of the Methodist Church that I fit in really well with. And so I decided that's where I was going to make my spiritual home. But it was through kind of that up and down trial and error that I really discerned. I felt some kind of calling to some kind of ministry. And I thought maybe that would be an academic ministry, or, it would look this way or that way. But through that, I mean, I found where I needed to go and continue to do ministry. So I graduated from there. I worked in that church for 2 years, that field education experience. I worked there for 2 years. I graduated from there, moved on to a church in Pennsylvania where I pastored for 2 years full time. And toward the end of 2019, my partner Ames, whom I talked about in the last episode, we had our 3rd kiddo, our youngest, Caldy.
The best.
Caldy's the best. Shout out to Caldy. And after that, though, Ames fell in a really, really deep postpartum depression, ended up in the hospital for a little bit, and that was really, really hard. We'll talk about that probably in a later episode. But through that time, Ames had kind of said, like, I want to go back home and be near our families in St. Louis. And so we packed up toward the beginning of 2020, ended up moving in April of 2020.
Great time to move.
Nothing
happened.
No, it was a super quiet time in American history.
Yeah.
In April of 2020.
Doesn't ring a bell.
And moved back home, and pandemic was hitting. Couldn't find a job. Couldn't find a job in a church. Ended up working in a school district for about a year as I kept my ear to the ground, and felt a certain a nudge to come and apply for this open position at Concord Trinity. That was a director of children's ministry job. Had never done children's ministry.
Who does that?
I know, right? I mean, they must have been. This
Desperate.
church must have been scraping the bottom of the barrel, because I had pastoral experience, but not children's ministry experience.
Yeah.
But they took a chance on me and brought me in, and that's how I ended up at Concord Trinity. And then last year, some staff was moving around. Our former associate pastor left, and they had asked if I would be willing to step into this new role and take on more responsibility and oversee larger swaths of ministry. So that's how I ended up in this position. But, it was a long and rocky road getting here in the first place. But I'm happy I'm happy I landed here. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and so that's kind of why they hired me here, because I think they were just so sad to see the state of the children's ministry after you left the position.
Was that it?
That's what you said in my interviews.
That's not what I said.
It sounds familiar.
That's not what I said.
Yeah. No, so very different story.
Yeah.
I think that's part of why we get along is we has a lot of similarities in our call stories, but a lot of differences as well. So like I said in the last episode, I grew up in the Southern Baptist denomination my whole life. My mom was raised Southern Baptist. My dad was raised in the Christian church, but it's the same thing. And in the same vein as JT with his love for the Catholic Church, I have so much love still for the Baptist church that I grew up in. It still some of my best relationships that I have with friends are from that place, and it raised me into the man that I am today, and walked alongside my family in really hard times that we went through with struggles with my parents and my sister and myself growing up as a teenager. You know, gave me my love for ministry, and that's where I found my call for ministry, was being there, and the experiences that they gave me while I was there. I still, despite all of the issues and the differences and disagreements that I have with the Baptist church, I have a deep love for it still to this day. So I came into ministry. I've been a youth pastor for 5 years now. So in the fall of 2018 is when I accepted a position at my home church to be the interim director of student ministries, because we were in a pastoral transition at the time. Our senior pastor had retired. Our current youth pastor at the time had been moved up to associate work, and they needed somebody to come and step in and do the youth ministry. I had just transferred at the time from the University of Central Missouri. Go Mules. Great school. #1 NAIA team in football. Dominated Lindenwood every year in and year out. You said that you were scared of UCM every year when you played them in football, right?
That's not what I said.
I think it sounds
they're
right.
They're not NAI. They're a Division II school. You big dumb.
Oh, whatever. Yeah, doesn't matter. Either way, I was a music education major for a long time. My now wife, she was at University of Missouri Kansas City, so we really enjoyed being an hour away from each other. And then when I came home for Thanksgiving break my sophomore year, was sitting in a church service, and that's when I realized that I was going down the right path of using my musical abilities to teach other people and to be a leader. But at the time, I was feeling called to pursue ministry and worship leadership. So I made the switch midway through the semester, my sophomore year, to come back home, and was going to move towards attending Missouri Baptist University, where I finished up my my studies there. Took some time in community college to kind of, not pay a private institution for all of my classes, which was probably the right call.
Super cheap.
Yeah, don't really want to, be millions of dollars in debt like I already am. But yeah, it was an interesting journey. So while I was a student at MoBap, I was also working. I was working. It was a part-time position, but there is no such thing as a part-time position in ministry. Everything, you either are giving your all to it or you're giving nothing at all. And because I was doing this job at my home church, I had an extra love for it. It wasn't something that was just a filler for me. It was something that was very personal to me. So I made sure that I gave everything that I had to that position. And then through pastoral transitions, we hired a new senior pastor, and he decided when he came on staff that he was going to keep all of us returning people in our respective positions. So our former youth pastor stayed on as an associate pastor. I stayed on as the youth director. And I was there through the pandemic, which was a super easy time to pastor during. No complications there whatsoever.
I can't think of any easier time.
No,
to be in parish ministry.
Everything was peachy, and we had a great time doing it. But yeah, made it through the pandemic, and then those couple years out of the pandemic, all jokes aside, were the harder years than the years during the pandemic, in my opinion. That year and a half that we were kind of fluctuating in and out of being in person and being online, and those years of trying to rebuild were a massive, massive challenge that I never want to relive ever again in my life. But yeah, ministry is one of those things, and it was during those kind of struggle years, that I started to realize that a lot of the viewpoints that I have on justice and inclusion weren't necessarily lining up with where I was currently serving at the time, and worked through that. Had lots of talks with mentors and with my wife and with my family. And we served the best that we could, and we stayed where God was calling us to, and we knew that God was calling us to be in the church that we were serving at the time. But it got to be a point where I knew that my time was up there. It wasn't something that I necessarily wanted to do because I was very comfortable in my position. As a youth pastor, I hate the stigma that the average lifespan of a youth pastor is 3 years. Because to me, that says that the first year you're getting to know everybody. Your last year, you're too focused on moving out of that position and starting fresh. So you really only have one solid year of ministry. So when I took that position, and when I take any position, like I have here at Concord, my goal and my vision is to be here forever, and to retire here. And being 27, that's obviously like 50 years away.
What's retirement?
We probably won't know.
I don't even know.
But that's where my heart's at. I don't want to give timestamps to anything. And I really want to break that stigma. So the moving on process from my last church was really hard. It was very sorrowful, and we had to work through a lot of those emotions. Can I have your charger, JT?
Yeah, I got it.
Thank you. Sorry. But we worked through that and went through the application process of moving new places. And to be completely honest, Concord Trinity was not on my radar when I was applying to some different positions. I actually had applied to a position similar to Concord Trinity, to be working with a colleague of mine that I've known for quite a few years, who you might get to meet on a later episode of this podcast. His name is Martin. He is the best. But he, after that interview process and working with him, and he kind of walked through a lot of those steps with me, was the one that told me about Concord Trinity. And he said, there's this guy. His name's JT.
All right.
And I think that you guys would mesh real well together if you apply to this church. And so I did. And then as soon as I got done with my interview, I knew that this was the place that I was going to be, and that God had put us here for a reason. I found out after I was hired that as soon as I left the interview, JT, and this is a quote, cried to our senior pastor and to our chair of the CLC and said, we have to hire this guy.
I think you're just misinterpreting, because I did cry and said we have to hire this guy because we were just at such the bottom of the barrel.
Is that what you said?
And it was like, my God, we just have to pull the trigger on someone.
Crazy. We can verify with David next week.
Can we?
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was one of those things. Like I think we all knew, all parties assigned knew that it was the right match, and it took a lot of stress off of myself and off of my family and my wife. But yeah, Concord is such a blessing, and very different from where we thought we were going to end up during transitional periods. But man, it has been a wild 6 months trying to get acclimated.
And now you're making that full-time youth pastor money.
Yeah, that does help. That really does help. Yeah, well, I wouldn't call it bank. Let's roll down. It's still ministry. It's like teachers. We don't necessarily make millions of dollars.
You were just telling me that teachers are overpaid.
I don't think I wouldn't. Being married to a teacher, I know for a fact they're not. But yeah, love Concord Trinity. Super excited about being here and where we're going to be going here in the future. But yeah, that's kind of my story.
Yeah, well, also it's probably important for us to chat a little bit about the church itself that we are at. I mean, we both have our own respective ministries within the church, but Concord itself hasn't been around super long.
55, I think? Yeah, 55.
Yeah, something like that.
That was like David's senior year of high school.
It was, yeah. A senior year of
college,
yeah. So not super old. The Concord Village is kind of the general name for the area we're in South St. Louis County. And Trinity comes from the name of a Methodist church that had closed in the city, the sale of which went to plant the new church, which would become Concord Trinity. And so church is not super old compared to some other congregations that have been around for much longer. But as a church, it has gone through a lot of change over the last several years. It's gone through in the Methodist Church. If you're not listening from a Methodist perspective, our lead pastors, our ordained folks, are basically moved around by the bishop, and they're part of what's called an itinerant system. And so during the pandemic, all new pastors start on July 1 of that year. And so July 1 of 2020, Concord got a new lead pastor, Mary Rogers Weaver. Shout out to Mary.
We love you, Mary.
And she was here from 2020 to 2023. And
conveniently left right when I got hired.
Conveniently, yeah. She actually said, "I cannot work with this guy. I got to get out of here." So, she booked it over to a new appointment, and then we received David. But so we had lead pastor changeover. Kyle came on about 6-7 months ago at this point.
David and I were 2 days apart.
That's
starting.
right. Yeah. So you guys came out at the same time in the summer of 23. Grace, our director of ministry,
worship ministry.
All right. Yes. Thank you. Our director of worship ministry came on in the fall of 23.
Yeah, late September.
Yeah. So the front facing ministry staff here has, besides myself, all turned over in the last less than a year. And so very different church, but we are moving in a direction that I'm really excited about. We have a social justice team that's been doing some really, really good work. The latest push has been on disability justice, and making our building more and more accessible to folks. We're becoming more and more open and affirming as a congregation. We label ourselves that way, and that's been a big point of conversation for us in our ministries, is how do we become more welcoming and more inclusive of anybody that walks through our doors, including LGBT folks, as that's a big point of discussion right now in the wider church. And we're seeing that more families, young families, are popping in. They hear what we're doing. They see some of the cool stuff we're doing with service and justice work. They hear the way that we run our worship services, which have continued to grow and evolve since we came back after COVID. And they're really buying into the vision. And so, there's a really cool movement happening here that we're excited about, and there's some cool things that we're excited about, specifically kicking up here in 24.
Yeah, and I mean that. Yeah, talk about Mary. Shout out to Mary Weaver. We know you're listening. But
she's probably not. She's real busy.
I don't know. She might be our number one fan. As somebody who is applying to a new church, and looking forward to women in leadership, when I was like, oh my gosh, this church has a woman pastor. Can't wait to work with her. And then, she passed by and she said, I'm leaving.
Deuces.
Yeah. I'll hire you, but I'm gone. Was a very sad day.
Yeah.
My family was so pumped to be at a church with a woman pastor, and I said, I got bad news, guys.
Yeah.
The good news is I'm hired. The bad news is old white guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about how I felt. When I came on, it was all women on staff except for our property manager, Joel. Shout out to Joel.
You were the token Theo bro.
I was not. There are no Theo bros here. And
we try to pride ourselves on that.
We try to resist that as much as we can. And then slowly our female pastoral leadership moved on to new opportunities, and now we have a very different looking team a couple years later.
Yeah, and it's very similar to the podcast. We're trying to make sure that we are attentive to that we are aware that there are 3 white dudes on stage, most time doing preaching and talking, and we're very thankful for Grace and the leadership that she provides in the worship leadership, and also just the responsibility of being the woman on staff and our front facing staff. That takes a toll for sure, and we know that she has a great responsibility, and she steps up to that too. But super excited for where CT is going. I know for myself in the family ministry, our youth department has boomed since I've been here. Coming in, getting ready to go straight on a mission trip. A lot of our key leadership said that there's about 18-ish, 15 to 18 kids that are really bought in, and we've basically doubled those numbers since I've been here, which is not quite what I was expecting, but in the best way has been a phenomenal result, and super excited about that. And again, we don't want to base our value just on numbers, but all these kids that we have are just bought in, and they care about each other, and they want to build great community here. That we're super excited about. Our kids ministry has really taken off as well, and we're seeing leadership step up, and we're trying out new things, and people are just excited to see what that's going to be. But yeah, there's an energy and a life here at Concord Trinity that I think, speaking as one of the new guys on staff, I don't think has it's been dormant for a lot of years coming out of the pandemic, and we've really just kind of been waiting for the moment that it was going to kind of kick off. And I think that this natural transitional period that we've been through is the spark that we need. And now people are just kind of waiting with bated breath of like, okay, so what's the next thing going to be? And we'll talk about more specifically some of those things in future episodes, like the Crea Project.
The Crea Project.
And some of the things that we're going to be doing with missions as well. But yeah, we're just super excited about what God's doing here at CT. And we know that we're going to play a role here in South St. Louis County, and we're just excited to see what that's going to look like for sure.
Yeah, and I think part of what has really brought that type of energy is, we've spent the last few years coming back after COVID really trying to reintroduce or in some ways introduce for the first time in a long time, trying to infuse every ministry we have here with an eye toward justice, with an eye toward service, with an eye toward what's going on outside the walls of this place, and not being so insular, which, I think COVID made a lot of us that way just as people.
It was a survival time, we were just trying to make it through both as an institution, but also like individuals were in that mode. But yeah, I think we've kind of touched on that going into 24, like the Methodist Church and churches across America are going to kind of be forced into taking these stances on these justice type issues. And I think the Methodist Church is going to feel it the hardest, obviously, with the General Conference and with what that's going to carry. But I know that it's one of those things that it's kind of looming over here at CT, and we're feeling what that weight is going to be. But I also feel a lot of excitement about that too, even though it's this really hard and heavy topic to talk about. People are excited for this to move and to start progress. So
yeah, there's cool stuff on the horizon, cool stuff, cool programming that we're going to get into more in future episodes. And the next episode, we're bringing on White Noise.
White Noise makes his podcast debut. We've talked a lot about the old man. You guys get to meet him for the first time. We're super excited about having David on. We give him a lot of trouble. David's the best, though.
David is the best.
We all love David. And you'll get to see why. It's not just us talking because he's our boss, and we know that he's listening to this podcast.
For the best way I can sum it up is when we were going through a pastoral transition, and the folks at the conference level who make decisions about which pastors go where, they always come and meet with the churches and kind of talk about the strengths of the church, the weaknesses of the church. What do you think you need in a leader? What do you, what was really great about your outgoing leader that you want to try to maintain? And I was not, then the staff is not allowed in that room. It's our church leadership council, who's made up of all lay people. But from what I hear, that conversation started out by saying, we don't need an old white guy.
So what happened?
And so the Missouri Methodist Conference mostly made up of old white guys.
True.
So for getting what we explicitly asked to not get, David is the best version of that we could have gotten.
That's true. It could have gotten significantly worse.
It could have been way different.
No, David brings out the best in what Concord Trinity is, and it's going to really lead us into a new era that we're really excited about. So, all that being said, join us next month on the Progressive Pastors Podcast. with the progressive pastor himself, one might say, Mr. David Stewart. We're super excited to have him, and we're excited for you guys to get to hear from him as well. So we will see you next time.
See you guys.